All right. This week, debate this topic is top 10 all-time pro wrestling factions. Now, this list, I believe this is a fan-generated list. From the source of it, I didn't think that this was done by any publication or anything like that. So, hey, we got no problem pulling stuff from fans out there, too. If it gets a discussion going, we'll add it on to debate this. So throw stuff up at us, tweet at us. Hit us up on Facebook. Let us know what you'd like to see us debate each and every single week here on the show. Because you guys can go first because this I'm not feeling this list at all.
No.
We're going about the order or who should be off this list.
And it's anything. It's debate. It's up for anything.
The order for me, I wouldn't. My order would be different.
DX would be number 2 for me, not Evolution. Sorry, the New World Order were groundbreaking.
Yeah, NWO wouldn't be number 1 for me.
I think NWO changed the game, so I'll have them as number 1.
I hate
the fact that the 4 Horsemen are not on this list.
Those words are just about to come out of my mouth.
Just complete blasphemy.
It's a young fan.
You got to be a young fan.
Because I was going to ask, who would you take off to put somebody in? But now that we have somebody, the 4 Horsemen, who would you take off to put in?
For me, four Horsemen's going up at number 1.
Number 1.
Okay.
I'll put them at 1. I'll put NWO at 2. I'll throw DX at 3. I'd make the argument Bullet Club would be 4. Based on what they've done over the last, almost 10 years or almost 10 years since that faction's been around, the different iterations. They put New Japan Pro Wrestling on the map. They birthed arguably the biggest stars at the hottest times. So I could argue Bullet Club being 4. Bloodline, I'd probably move up to 5 right now, and with an asterisk to move them higher, because you have the longest reigning WWE champion in the modern era, and you're going to have the longest reigning tag team champions in the modern era. The Usos of the Bloodline, they're going to take over New Day's consecutive day streak. Roman's is only growing. I think San Martino and Bob Backlund are the only 2 he's trailing as far as total days. So when you add that into the mix for longevity, staying on top, you got to have them up there in the top 5.
And they have to have that match for me, the New Day and Usos. Hopefully they started booking from last night. You got to have that match to overcome their record.
What the New Day was. Yeah.
For me, yeah. You got to have that match.
And that storyline writes itself. There's not a lot that you got to do there. It's, hey, you guys were number 1. We the ones, as they like to say. We're going to be the longest reigning champs ever.
He who shall not be mentioned.
Yeah, I think that the 2 that can go off of this list for me, the Corporation and Main Event Mafia.
I never watched TNA during the Main Event Mafia's run, so I don't know anything about them, so they can completely go.
Main Event Mafia were cool, but it was at a point in time where none of those guys were in their prime.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Kurt, with the exception of Kurt. But the faction themselves, Kurt, Sting, Nash, Steiner, Booker T. I mean, that's a hell of a faction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only other one 2 other ones that popped into my mind as far as old school factions that are on the list, the Varsity Club, and then the Freebirds.
Would you consider New Day?
New Day, you would consider New Day a faction.
A faction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about the Deadly Alliance, WCW?
I didn't know enough about them, but
I don't know if I would put them top 10.
They'd be up there. Probably not top 10, but they're up there. Personnel.
Triple Threat, ECW.
That was going to be my last one that I was going to bring up to the table. They would have to be on this list too.
Yes.
I'm taking the Hart Foundation off and putting 4 Horsemen on.
That's just because you hate Bret Hart.
Yes.
You can't do that. Like the Hart Foundation, you can't drop them off.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, here we go. Put that up. Does the Y family crack the top 10? I would say no.
No.
Because they didn't have the success
that
they should have had. I know Rowan and Redbeard and Brody Lee, they held tag team titles, and that Ray did win the WWE title at one point. But to me, they lost more big time feuds than they won, which hurts them as far as a top 10 faction. Dave, great point.
Yeah.
No, but they'd be in the top 20 for me.
If they were still running the Hurt business, and we're talking that you would have been roughly 2 years into their run, because they started in the pandemic, right? I mean, 2 years in, that's a long time for a faction.
No AEW factions. Would you
there's
consider
not
Inner Circle?
There's not. No, because they weren't around long enough.
Okay.
None of those AEW factions, and I guess you can call the elite or the super elite a faction, but they haven't been together. Like they're just friends together. Like they're not a faction truly dominating a promotion or running. You know what I mean? Like all these factions, for the most part, minus the Nation of Domination, just out of this top 10 list, were on top of a company. And the Nation, even though they may not have been number one at the top of the company, but they battled with the number one faction at the time, which was DX. So you have both of those playing off of each other. For me, none of those AEW stables or factions.
And I can't call the elite of the faction. It meant to me that's just a spinoff of Bullet Club.
Has anybody held titles in the faction? I know Sammy has.
Wait, which faction? Which faction you talking about?
Just in AEW in general.
Oh, AEW.
Jericho was champion.
He was in
Inner Circle. But you're thinking multiple.
Did FTR have the tag belts in the Pinnacle?
I'm trying to remember what that run was for them.
After.
Because they only had the belts for 60 days, and you made them lose to the Young Bucks and made them number one contenders, and they haven't gotten a title shot since. Joke.
Yeah, if they would lasted longer, I'd definitely put the Inner Circle on here. Just for their importance.
I completely forgot about them.
They would be above Main Event Mafia for me. They would be above the Corporation for me.
Yes.
I'd probably put them over the Nation just because of their run in NXT and how they dominated NXT. So yeah, I got no problem adding Undisputed Era to the top 10 list.